Okay, let's go. It's time for Be Picked. When you're ready to move from clicks to clients, learn to be picked.
Welcome to Be Picked. This is the podcast where we talk with professional service providers, mostly on the smaller end, who are trying to build their businesses and trying to find more clients. We talk about all the ways that you can do that and the things that are necessary in order to help you be successful in that field. My name is Andrew Colsky. I'm one of you. I've done it myself, and that's why I'm talking about it. I talk from experience, not from reading about it. And today we have a guest. Her name is Alice Dillon. She is an author, intuitive counselor, Reiki master, and a longtime successful business owner. And I know you're going to enjoy hearing her talk about how she built her successful business, because it's a formula for you. So Alice, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much for that intro.
Well, we're glad to have you. You and I had an opportunity to talk a little bit before we started the show, and you were so spot on to a lot of the messages that we talk about here. So I'm going to start off by just opening the floor to you. I know that you have had a very successful business, and I'd love for you to share with the audience, at the end of the day, what is it that you learned, the lessons learned that helped you be successful and that anyone else needs to know in order for them to be successful in building their own?
And I think the summation of that, and I'll go into the details, but the summation of that is that authenticity sells. I recently had an opportunity to look at this whole marketing and sales issue regarding my book. And, once you publish a book, everybody wants to put you into this marketing niche and go and market there and do that. And it got all so crazy and noisy. And then I remembered what it was that made me successful in the first place. It wasn't because I was a marketing guru or because I did a whole bunch of courses. It was because I only worked with product that I truly believe in, that I could authentically go out to people and say, in this exchange, I'm bringing my best truth and I'm coming to you with that. And people knew I was hugely successful in my field as a very young woman, and I to the point that I had to lie about my age often because people wouldn't believe that my business was run by a 21-year-old. I had to 25 at least, because I was hugely successful. Nowadays that's not such an anomaly, but back then it was. And it was really just, and I did that backwards. Most indigos, which are spiritually perceptive people who are born spiritually perceptive, we live backwards. We find something that's true for us and we stick to it, and we only learn in retrospect why it was a good thing. So when I started out, I got launched into the world of business, and I intuitively found my way around to a product I really believed in, to an industry I really cared about, which was providing alternative healthcare to people. So they could go to normal doctors or they could go to alternative chiropractors and such. And I truly believed in that. I wanted people to have options. And so I just went out with a passion, and people respond to that. To the point where the heads of companies that I was selling to, they would sit me down and say, what's your secret formula? What is it that you do? And I really had to think about it. What do I do? And really it was just a matter, when I broke it down, of being authentic, not being willing to compromise myself, truly believing in what I was doing, and people respond to that, And when I'm sitting with someone, I'm never, and it's the path that's really led me to doing intuitive counseling, because when I'm sitting with you or Joe Smith or whoever, I'm truly focused there. I'm truly looking at you, I'm hearing you, I'm understanding what you need, and seeing if what I have fits that. And if it doesn't, I'll truly say, I don't have anything for you, but I can try and find something. So never overselling, never mis-selling, never building a false relationship with someone. And that truth has really seen, first of all, it's a lovely way to live because you never regret. You never, hear that someone's on the phone and think, oh my word, it's him. It's also so much simpler, easier, and effortless to tell the truth.
Right.
It just is.
Right.
Holding a lie up all the time is exhausting. It's exhausting. So I fortunately never did that. I remember once I was in the Institute of Marketing Management. I was sitting in their foyer waiting to go in and present something to them. They'd asked me to come and do something. And I picked up a book, a magazine, and in it there was an article that said that, I think the headline was, "Why Your Sales Agents Have a Shelf Life of 5 years." And I was in year 8. So
Wow.
I thought, what are you talking about? And the real truth is, it's truth. If you stick to what you know, if you really research your market, and you connect with people on an honest level, then everybody will be happy. And if you don't
Right.
have something for someone, you just say you don't. Now, the people who are really good at this, and I built up a bank of 800 sales agents in my time, and I found that the people who were best at sales were indigos, which are people who were born with spiritual perception. So as a child, they knew things. Like they knew Granny was wanting to say something, or they knew that someone in the room was a bad guy, or they knew, so they had enhanced intuition, or clairvoyance, or clairaudience, one of those. And as indigos, we learn early, first of all, if we have 5-sense parents or we have a 5-sensed environment, we learn to keep quiet about what we're seeing because it's not generally acceptable by 5-sense people. But then when we come into the work world, that intuition can really work for us. We really
Right.
know that this deal is going to work or this isn't going to work. So I think the spiritually perceptive, and I think it's one of the reasons 10 years ago there was a study done on how CEOs of companies were starting to meditate. Like out of the blue, everyone was meditating. And there we go. It's about connecting. Once you start a meditation regime, which is what Reiki really is, so once you start meditating regularly, you'll enhance your intuition, and your intuition will guide you. It sometimes will colors outside the lines a bit. I'll give you an example. My PA in my business, she would come to me in the morning with the daily meetings. Today you're going to see so-and-so at 10 and so-and-so's coming. And I'd look at her and I'd say, no, the 2 o'clock's not going to come. Fortunately, she knew me well enough to know that I was right. I was always on with that. But of course, we'd wait for them to cancel before we scheduled something else. But still, it's just being in touch with your intuition. A
Right.
lot of indigos turn out to be really successful business people. And when I say indigos, there's a litany of labels that apply, from empath to intuitive to highly sensitive people. ADHD is one that we've had thrown at us. Now we're neurodivergent. And there's a lot of history that I go into in my book, which if I can just do the book quickly,
Sure.
Done in the Sea of Normal. In the Sea of Normal is the book.
Perfect.
And I go into all of that there, but all of us have within us the capacity to enhance our lives everywhere, in every forum. And one of the things that really feels true for me is our first job is always to craft our product. So if I'm going to craft my product as an author, I'm going to be the best author I can be. I'm going to check myself. I'm going to check my facts. I'm going to be available to my readers. I'm going to be the best product I can be. And then trust the process in getting that out there,
Right.
knowing that I can arrive authentically and be authentic, and that people will respond to that. So
Right.
I really know from my own success that authenticity beats everything. When you don't
Right.
have to put on a mask every day, when you don't feel like you're having to fake it, people respond to that. So yeah,
Well, let me-
that would be my first absolute for anybody, 5 cents or 6 cents, is
Right.
to craft your product and then be confident in your product and then show up. Just show up entirely in a moment and people will respond to that.
Well, let me stop you there for a second because I want to get some clarification on one point.
Yes.
People who listen to this show have probably heard me talk about my upcoming book. And one of the things that I say that is important in that book and also important in the whole reason that I do this podcast and my business and everything related to this is because at the end of the day, people, meaning the potential clients, are searching for comfort. And in order for them to obtain that comfort, they need to find someone that they trust, that they believe in, that they feel understands them, etc. All the things that you're saying. But here's my question. When you talk about being authentic, when you talk about believing in the product, which in the case of an attorney, a doctor, a mental health counselor, a chiropractor, whatever it may be, the professional is the product in a way, right? So here's the question. If someone is listening to this and they're thinking to themselves, okay, I got to be authentic, I've got to believe in myself, and they come across in terms of, okay, that means I got to tell people that I went to a good school, that I worked really hard, that I got good grades, that I, do well in the work that I do. That's not exactly what you are referring to, is it? And my
No.
question then is, can you help clarify that? So if someone's listening to you and coming at it with that mindset, what is it that you would have to say to them to help them kind of better understand what you're saying?
Absolutely. So, well, it's best to reference your own experience. So, let's say you're walking along the road or you walk into a building and you're meeting Joe Bloggs, and Joe Bloggs behind him has a wall of certificates, but he barely looks at you, ushers you into a room, he's rude, he doesn't say much, he assumes everything, he doesn't hear you out, and it doesn't matter how many qualifications he has. It doesn't matter how shiny his backup is. If you don't feel him, if you as a person don't feel seen and heard by him, it's not going to be a comfortable experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so even a 5 cents person who's not empathic could sit down and get the person, so why are you here? Tell me your story. What is it I can do for you? Really hear you, and then implement a solution, and somebody at least feels heard.
Right, right. And with
Anyone
that,
can do that. Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I did want to say, with that, as you're talking about it, I'm thinking to myself, perhaps one easy way for people to understand whether they are accomplishing that or not is if their intention is to impress the other person how well qualified they are, that is the opposite from what we're saying, which is your intention should be to understand where your client or potential client is coming from in terms of their pain points, their story, their desires. So it should be more asking questions than making statements about yourself, because
In
it's two
fact,
different points.
absolutely. And in fact, in my sales training, I always used to have a 3-step process. I used to tell all my sales agents that in every meeting they should identify 3 things: the primary, secondary, and tertiary need. So somebody's primary need is going to be the thing that you see when you walk into, if you're going to them, it's the thing that you see when you walk into their office. And a lot of the time, they're going to be busy. They're busy. They're busy. They're doing this, answering that phone, reshuffling papers. And so they're trying to show you, my primary need is I'm busy. I need you to do whatever you're going to do in this tiny piece of time. And then once you address that, and you say, I can see that you're really busy and you've probably crunched today. So would you like me to break my visit down into the shortest possible explanation? And they'll, okay, you've addressed a need. You've observed me. You've addressed something. And secondary need will be something like the picture of their family on their desk, or their story, or their problem. Or secondary need is more intimate, but it's on display somewhere. And if you see it and address it, now you've already stepped closer to their feeling now seen, their feeling heard. And then tertiary need is somehow related to why ever you're there. Whatever it is that they need that you could possibly address or not, an identification of that. But that entire process really comes down to, and this is why I say that indigos or spiritually perceptive really do very, very well in marketing, because we can walk into a room, we can pick up how this person's feeling today, we can pick up where they are in their life, we can address all of that. And if they're coming to me as an intuitive counselor, obviously somebody walks in to my office, and I counsel a lot of business people, and they'll walk in and if it's their first time, they're always going to be uncomfortable. Like, is this woo-woo? What am I doing here? I've been told I should come, but am I going to be all right? And if you see that and address it immediately, so if you see them walk in the door and say, I promise you I've got no cannabis incense burning, everything's good, you're safe, I'll leave the door open if you want to run away, I won't stop you. You make them laugh, you make them feel comfortable, and they immediately feel seen, they feel addressed, and from there you can start to build that relationship. But I never have a plan with any client, whether I'm online or anywhere else. I never have an agenda, because that's one of the first ways that people can tell that you're not authentic. So if you're constantly referencing something, okay, so the next question, I mean,
Right.
You've got to just come from what they call shoot from the hip. You've got to be coming at someone with your genuine self and saying, how can I help you? Let's see if I can. And I promise if I can't, we'll have had a cup of tea and exchanged a pleasantry or two.
Right.
So always leave that open. I think sometimes, even with all professional services, it's always a good option to put on the table. Tell me what it is, let me see if I can help, and if I can't, I will make sure that you've got access to something else that could help.
Right.
I will try and facilitate that. So always make it that I'm not always the right fit for everybody. Sometimes what you need is something more than what I do, or it's different to what I do. So, and I think any professional, whether it's a small business person or there's leaving that gap really is refreshing for people. Look, let's be honest. The world is tired of words and fluff. We are tired. The whole world is tired of shiny. We're tired of having things shone up, and promises broken and that kind of thing. It's so refreshing to be able to meet someone where they are and to say, this is who I am, this is what I do. Let's see if I can help you. And if I can't, I'll try and get you to someone who can.
Right.
And immediately, just that has already built for someone a level of comfort that they're not committing this next half hour or whatever it is of their time to a completely useless pursuit, which is the fear they walk in with. So you've addressed that now, you've put it aside, and then you can get to the product, which is the you, whatever it is that you're doing.
Right.
So there we go.
Well, it's to play off of that, I'm thinking back for myself when I was starting off trying to, obtain clients, and I come both as an attorney and a mental health professional. And I learned the same lesson, which was potential clients would come in, and they were so glad to be sitting in front of someone, and they couldn't wait to tell their story. And approaching it as an attorney, and even as a mental health practitioner, clinician, I'm looking for, what's the issue here? How do we address the issue? What are the facts related to that issue? What's the key here? And I would want to try to get to that. But I learned you have to just listen first. Because in that listening, you're going to get about 80, maybe even 90% of irrelevant information to the issue. But if you don't give the person an opportunity to tell their story, to feel listened to, they're not going to feel comfortable with you. And when you let them tell their story, you thought you needed X, but you start to find out that, oh my gosh, I learned about Y, Z, and A that I never even would have thought to look into. But the fact that I just listened, and I know it takes time, and I know time is expensive and valuable, and you do have to learn to, work with the people, but not in a way where you're cutting them off and telling them, just answer this question, just answer that question, because you're missing out on the whole thing, and that is the quickest way to destroy any possible connection between you and.
But now, Andrew, I'm going to say to you that I suspect that you're an indigo adult. And there was another reason for you to need to give that time. Because I think you will find that if you look in retrospect, I know you're coming at it from an intellectual point of view, and everything you're saying is correct. But I think also that when you sit and you modulate with someone, and you sit and you harmonize with them, you will receive and interpret inspiration. I can see that in you, that you'll be sitting with someone and your mind will be telling you, they check this box and that box and that box. But there is also information that you're processing from your intuitive self that's saying, hold on, they have this issue. They've not said it, but they have this issue. I bet you're also a really good BS detector. I bet you that while sitting, because I still have no idea why people do it, but I still have clients to this day who will come and sit with me and try to tell me nonsense, which I don't understand why you would go to a counselor and try and convince them of something that's not true. But me knowing that they're talking nonsense, in a gentle and we'll sit and we'll have tea, and then I'll say, that was a wonderful story. Now can we get to the truth? Maybe. Can we start on the truth? But it takes me, 5-10 minutes to listen and hear and modulate and then say, okay, either this is all nonsense or that piece is true and that piece is true, but the rest of it here is nonsense. And so I think for us as well as practitioners, especially ones who are indigo adults or are spiritually perceptive, we also need the time to tune in, tune into them. And
Right.
once we tune into them, we can see, okay, that's where the real issue is, that's where the sensitivity lies, that's where we're going. So I think
Yeah.
you're right, for both them and us to give our best. That 5-10 minutes of real interaction, real communication, helps us to modulate to them and really find their wavelength and find their truth. Because once we hook into that, we can really truly see where we can help, which is really sorry, this is the studio cat.
Ah.
He decided he was going to be a scarf for a moment. Um, that's really all that we're doing. We're going. I had an image the other day of, I was listening to some podcast, and someone was talking about of old villages. And the old village where the baker made the bread, and it was gorgeous bread. It was made from grain that was grown right there. And, different people made different things, but it was all hand produced. It was genuine, and nobody had to market anything. There was no marketing needed because everyone needed the products, and the products turned up in response to need more than anything else. And that's
Right.
all what we're doing. We need to get back to that. We need to get back to the idea that whatever I do addresses a genuine need. And then the only
Right.
marketing necessary is to make sure that my information is somewhere in the vicinity of someone in need. That's it.
Yeah.
The product is
And
good. Everybody needs something, and I have something that people need. And
right.
then you don't
Right.
have to put bells and whistles around it. You just authentically show up and be the good product that you are and serve needs. And if you genuinely serve those needs, people will respond. They need to feel seen and heard, because that's so lacking. I mean, you talk about mental health. The speed of our environment created an entire industry. The mental health profession is mostly about people not listening to each other anymore. People don't hear each other, they don't listen to each other. And so most of our profession is generated by people being at such a pace and not hearing each other. So in every possible human interaction, that's almost a given need. Whoever you meet, everyone wants to be heard. Even the receptionist at the office that you go to meet the person, even the driver of the person who brings the person. If you can just address everyone, see them truly, and acknowledge them, you're a step ahead already.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. And in my language for myself, what I have broken that down into is the understanding that people start off with something coming from a place of fear. because they've got a legal problem, they've got a potential medical problem, they have whatever, and there's this fear that they need to have addressed. And when they come in and they talk with you and you talk about, them being fully honest and so on and so forth, it's hard for people to come in, especially to a stranger, and right from the beginning admit their fears, admit their concerns. So they don't want to. They need to test the waters, and they need to see your responses, and they need you to show them that you have empathy, that you're not going to be beating up on them when they tell you that, well, I didn't actually stop at the stop sign. I was kind of looking at a text when I hit that other car. But they come in with, the other guy hit me. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I stopped at the stop sign. So, giving them that signal that you're listening, that you're understanding, and that you're able to respond empathically, then they open up. Then you can start getting to the factual side of things, whether you're wearing a lawyer's hat, whether you're wearing a clinician's hat, whatever it is, it's all the same.
And I think I've had enough experiences of judgmental service providers that I also truly believe that creating a space of non-judgment, it's difficult, especially for younger people. I find people in their 20s, when we emerge from teenagehood, where everything is black and white, and in our 20s we're still trying to pigeonhole a lot of things, and so judgment kind of comes along with that. But
yeah,
if you can temper that, if you can really try and say, look, everybody's doing the best they know how with the knowledge they have, and really come at people like that and not judge that, it can, especially in the clinician space, it can be tough when people come to you to try and figure out how to stop beating their wife. It's a tough chore. It's tough because there is a possible judgment call there, and so we have to have a broader space where we're not being judgmental. And I think a lot of people try to address that with clinical coldness, and I've never found that to work. It's
right.
You've really got to, and if you can't find that space of non-judgment, then you're not the person for them. Then you're
Right.
not the practitioner for them, and the same would be true in the legal space. I can't imagine, someone coming to you and saying, yes, I just murdered my whole family and they looked at me funny and now I want you to defend me. That's a tough one. How do attorneys do that? And if you can find that space of non-judgment, if you can find that authentic place that says everybody deserves to be represented, then go for it. Then that's what. But if you can't, be honest. Be authentic about it and say, I'm not the person for you, but I'll find you someone who is.
Right.
For myself, I think when we get our first gray hairs or whatever it is, we kind of come to a place where we drop the judgment simply because we know everyone's doing the best they can. And even then, there's still sometimes space. But to allow people to feel free to tell you, and sometimes it will take a client 3 or 4 sessions before they confess to something they could have told you in the beginning. But if you are intuitive, you'll already know it. And whenever I pick up on one of those, I write it in my notes, not for myself, but so that when the client does eventually confess, I can show them that meeting 1, I knew that. You know?
Right.
And this has been your struggle, not mine. And I've always been okay with that, And again, that's about building relationship. It's about building trust. It's about making sure that people know they're safe with you. In a world that is increasingly unsafe in so many ways, just the knowing that they are safe here in this space, at least, You
Right.
know, that's gold. And I
Yeah.
think if you just achieve those two, be authentic, tell the truth, create safe space, I think you've already got the best foundation for everything.
Well, I think you're spot on with all that. And now we are unfortunately out of time for today's podcast. But I want to remind everybody that Alice's book is called Alone in a Sea of Normal. And my book is called Left of Trust. It is not out yet, but you can go to my website to look at pre ordering. Alice, do you have a website that people could go to?
The best place is to go to either Books to Read or Amazon, because that will take you to all the, some people like ebooks, some people like printed. So Amazon is great, and Alice, people always get my name wrong. It's Aly. You've spelt it right there. So don't try and look up Alice like as in Alice in Wonderland. You won't find the book. So Alone in a Sea of Normal on Amazon or Books to Read. It'll give you links to everywhere that it's available. And then I
Great.
have a podcast as well on YouTube called Ask Alice. It's just me. It's just me mouthing off every couple of days, just discussing
Wonderful.
the universe and everything.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. For those of you who are listening, I hope you're taking something valuable away from today's podcast and you can use it to help build your own business. We have all of our podcasts and we have blog articles and all sorts of information available at www.bpicked.com. You can learn about everything we talk about here and more. So we'll see you there, and we'll see you on the next episode of Be Picked. Thank you for joining us, and thank you.
If you are enjoying this content, please like and subscribe. Thank you.